This is Marco. Hi, everyone. This is Marco. Welcome to Social Enterprise Summit 2021. And I'm from Social Innovation Exchange, which I'm now actually connecting from Singapore. But my background is Hong Kong, of course. I miss Hong Kong a lot. So I'm sure in the room, there are friends which I've been connecting for quite a number of months. So say hi. I couldn't see you though, but I just wanted to send my greetings from Singapore. So this session is under the track of Building Alliance for Regional Collective Impact. And our session will talk about social innovation ecosystem builders, the role of intermediaries in East Asian cities. So today we will be having contributors from Korea, Hong Kong, and Thailand to share some of their experience. And of course, I'll share a little bit of my experience in social innovation exchange on how do we build communities. So as you can see, in the past years in Hong Kong especially, we have a booming scene of social innovation with the input and also the steering impact of the Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development Fund. There are many intermediaries established to groom and to grow the field and the sector. So, and there are a lot more cross-sector collaborations among governments, funders, and social innovators, and also academias. So actually, intermediaries has been playing a very important role in building the whole ecosystem. They connect networks, they connect people, they consolidate knowledge, and they also have a shared visions, common identities. And I think this is how intermediary have a rising importance. So according to some of the literature, in innovation intermediary is not something new. So there have been there are different terms that you might have heard, like agents, brokers, knowledge transfer, and they have several roles in connecting, in building the field, and also they will be looking for inventions, helping to commercialize, and so there are different roles of intermediary. And today we are especially looking into 3 cities in our region, Seoul, Thailand, and also Hong Kong. We'll have our friends to share some of their experience on how they use their role to connect, to build, and to bridge. Today we'll have Mr. Jung Yong Cho, Mr. Cho from the Chief Director of Seoul Social Economy Center, South Korea, to share with us. Unfortunately, because of a clash of schedule, he couldn't be with us today in person, even virtually, but he had already recorded a video to share with us some of his learnings and insights from his experience in Korea. And then we'll have Kun Fa, Miss Montra Versarak from Rise Impact Thailand is the co-founder of the organization, to share with us her experience in Thailand. And finally, we have, of course, Jessica from the Hong Kong Council of Social Service from our own city, Hong Kong, to share with us. So without further ado, I will tag our Korean friends his video to be on. So at this point, I'll invite every one of you to wear your SI machine, the simultaneous interpretation machine, so you can understand what our Korean friends has to share with us. So video, please.
서울 사회적경제지원센터장 조조입니다. 서울은 지금 갈림길에 서 있습니다. 시민 주도의 혁신으로 갈 것인가, 아니면 정부 주도의 퇴행으로 갈 것인가 입니다. 서울 사회적 경제는 단기간에 큰 성장을 이루었습니다. 2012년 이후로 사회적 경제 기업 수도 800개에서 거의 5,000개 수준으로 성장을 했고, 고용 인원이나 매출액도 5배 이상 큰 성장을 했습니다. 그것은 서울 생태계 전체가 이룬 성과입니다. 서울시에서도 지원을 했고, 중간 지원 조직인 사회적 경제 지원센터, 또 여러 사회적 경제 협의회들이 함께 이루어낸 큰 성과라고 생각을 하고 있습니다. 그런데 작년 팬데믹 상황이 오면서 큰 위기 국면을 맞이했습니다. 대한민국은 K-방역에 성공하면서 정부라든지 질병관리본부라든지 의료기관들은 굉장히 큰 신뢰를 쌓았다고 평가받은 반면에 여러 정치적인 조직이나 언론기관들은 굉장히 신뢰 수준이 낮아졌다고 했는데 굉장히 재밌는 어떤 데이터들은 정부나 이런 신뢰 수준이 높아졌는데 가까이 있는 이웃들이 낯선 사람들, 이웃들이 신뢰 수준이 굉장히 낮아졌다는 통계조사가 나왔습니다. 한국은 OECD 국가 중에서도 사회적 자본이 굉장히 최하위 수준입니다. 사실 사회적 경제가 이런 사회적 자본을 높이는데 일조해야 하는데 팬데믹 상황으로 인해서 굉장히 사회적 자본이 낮아지는 이런 상태를 이제 보이고 있다는 것이죠. 그래서 서울의 사회적 경제 중간 지원 조직 또는 정책에 있어서 어떤 큰 변화가 이루어져야겠다 이런 생각을 했습니다. 이런 민주적인 시민들이 서로 신뢰관계 안에서 어떤 지역살이를 해낼 수 있을까? 이걸 어떻게 지속할 수 있을까? 그래서 기존의 사회적 경제로 그걸 도달할 수 없다고 하면 시민들이 생활 속에서 어떤 문제를 지속적으로 해결해 나갈 수 있는 시민경제로 다시금 도약해야 되는 것이 아닌가 이런 관점에 고민이 들기 시작을 이제 한 거죠. 그래서 작년 팬데믹 상황에서 서울에 새로운 어떤 큰 자원들을 도입하면서 새로운 정책 사업을 만들었는데 코로나 상황으로 골목 상권이 완전히 망가지는 상황이었거든요. 그래서 지역에 있는 사회적 경제 주체들과 골목에 있는 소상공인들이 어려운 상황에서도 새로운 어떤 협업 활동이 이루어질 수 있도록 하는 정책 사업을 만들고 이를 통해서 골목 안에서 지역 안에서 새로운 어떤 협업 활동을 해내자. 그래서 다양한 지역 협업 활동이 이루어졌는데요. 요거 보시는 상황이 서울 안에 강동구라고 하는 작은 지역 안에서 여러 빵집들이 협업해서 새로운 사회적 경제 활동을 이뤄내는 사업을 만들어내게 되었습니다. 이런 정책 사업과 어떤 실험을 통해서 서울의 사회적 경제라고 하는 것이 초기에는 한 10여 년 전에는 처음에 공공주도로 정책이 만들어지고 기업이나 정부 위주로 사업이 실행됐다고 하면 최근에 이제 서울에 근 한 10년 동안의 사회적 경제 지원 정책은 상호 협력하는 방식으로 사업이 만들어져 왔습니다. 민간 협력을 통해서 상호 협력하는 방식으로 이런 사회적 경제 성장 사업을 해왔고 그거 안에서 중간 지원 조직으로서의 사회적 경제 지원 센터가 나름대로의 이제 큰 역할을 해왔다고 볼 수 있습니다. 여기가 더 성장해서 원래 사회적 경제가 주도하는 방식으로 시민주도 방식으로 더 성장해 나가는 데 있어서 중간 지원 조직 역할을 해야 된다고 생각을 하고 있는 거죠. 그런 방향으로 나아가고 있는데 앞에 처음에 제가 얘기 드렸듯이 지금 서울에 어떤 정책 구조나 정치 상황이 변화하면서 지금 기로에 서 있게 된 거죠. 다시 공공주도 방식으로 초기 방식의 공공주도 방식의 퇴행적인 구조로 갈 것인가 아니면 이런 계기를 통해서 시민이 정부나 시주도 방식이 아니라 더 시민주도 방식으로 더 확장된 더 혁신적인 방식으로 나아갈 것인가 기로에 서 있는데요. 시민의 힘이 무엇인가 결의하고 나아가는 방향에 따라서 그 기로가 향방이 바뀔 수 있다. 이런 생각으로 중간 지원 조직이 더 힘을 내도록 노력하고 있습니다. 고맙습니다.
Thank you so much. I think Korea example is really interesting. It's all started from the previous mayor. They are more. At first, they started as a more government-led social economy, and then because of the intermediary effort, they slowly transit from a government-led to citizens-powered. So even though there are different political change. However, because the system in place facilitated by intermediary, I think the citizens become more democratic, the process become more democratic, and how the way forward, there are different changes and uncertainty, how these citizens can continue providing field and power to the society and also through the innovation process. That's something very interesting for me. And after hearing from Korea, maybe we can now shift to Bangkok, and Thailand. So we have Fa from Rise Impact to share with us some of their insight and their journey as an intermediary in Thailand, and how do they facilitate the field development of social innovation, and what are they thinking behind. So I will leave the time to Fa now to share some of her story and her team story. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marco. Can I share the screen now? Okay. Thank you for having us. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Mantra Fa. I'm co-founder of Rise Impact. We're basically based in Bangkok, but now I'm working from Chiang Mai as well. So I hope the internet connection is still stable until the end of the session. So a super short description about us. Rise Impact is a small independent organization with a big dream. We want to catalyze systemic change. And with that goal in mind, we realized that it's a journey that is a journey through a dynamic and complex process with so many components interconnected. So our entry point was starting off in 2018 from the social entrepreneurship side by working with early stage and potentially high impact social entrepreneurs and social innovators, utilizing our experience working in Thai social enterprise office. So basically one of our service in this area is the Impact Venture Incubation Program, aiming to build sustainable business models and scalable impact models for those who have already kickstarted the solution idea into the market. But after a couple of years working directly to support social entrepreneurs and innovators, we found out that there's a lack of focus and resources to scale their solution. And they often, I would say, operate below the policy radar. That's why we're moving forward to engage with system leadership and policy. We really want to bridge great ideas on the ground with a larger mechanism to make it scalable and create high impact change. So from 2019, we started our health system leadership program called Positive Health Disruptor, which basically the idea is we scout champions who work in the strategic issue in health system and come together to reframe and execute the system change initiative, with intensive support from mentors who have high experience working as a system disruptor themselves and have high, there's also some supportive mechanism from the program, such as online learning, group discussion, peer learning, and linkage to key stakeholders to make it really happen. And we also started to engage directly with the policy development system by working in partnership with the Foundation of Thai Gerontology Research and Development Institute to try new ways to engage public and key stakeholders in developing future aging policy in Thailand. We choose to step in with the policy dialogue, which is an open space that enables fact-based discussion and sharing experience to discover common ground and unveil, I would say, possible collaboration paths. And apart from policy dialogue, we also employ other stakeholder engagement process, such as online public engagement, to communicate and gather opinion toward policy from broader groups of people. So basically, starting off with this initiative, we want to see wider awareness and engagement of people in understanding what affect their lives and be able to voice out and make real change. We want to see more innovative and meaningful collaborations among different sectors. We want to see shifted mindset of decision makers to embrace more experimental idea, learning from failure and make it parts of developmental process for public goods. So just a couple of minutes from now on, I want to share some example of our work to give you a better idea of what we do and how we do it. So in Policy Dialogue for Future Aging Policy, we follow the system change framework with 5 key steps in policy development process. And we identify one of the key strategic goals, which is to create better quality of life of the elderly through better access to quality services. So during the framing process, we find out that the local government is a key player behind this policy initiative because it has been officially assigned as a policy execution arm, accountable for better livelihood of the elderly. And practically, it is a government unit that works closely with the elderly in the local area. So from there, we conduct a dialogue with key stakeholders to explore deeper insight about their points of view toward the existing challenges, barriers, supportive mechanism, as well as co-design potential solution for empowering the local government to create better access to better service and basically validate the priority and practicality of the intervention. The output are practical policy recommendations on what are the practical steps to do to support the local government and a group of committed stakeholders who want to continue this initiative into action. And we currently in the process of collaborating with local partners to do a pilot test with the local government who have been part of the dialogue process to try out how to deliver key services for the elderly in a real context. And at the bottom of the slides, it is an impact we made this year, and we expect to expand our work deeper in the aging policy level and wider into like other policy issues. And here's some photos from what we've done this year. The previous one is the policy dialogue process, and this one is an online public engagement, and we're starting off with the topics of dementia and aging in place. Another example is in the field of system leadership. We basically found out that the solution from the leading practitioner on the ground are always limited to specific context due to lack of engagement with wider mechanism, and there's no scaling strategy in place, which leaders in policy agency who want to make change are often blocked by an old bureaucratic regime and interfere by politics to the point where it's really hard for them to create change from within. So therefore, we create a program which provide an experimental space for system leaders from both practitioner and policy side to turn the idea into strategic initiative, do some prototype and work on a strategy to incorporate new change into the system. So here's one of the example of the project developed through the Health System Leadership Program. It's from one of our fellow who is doctor in the southernmost province in Thailand, who want to build a better primary care system to serve the health needs of local people, which basically is related to so many factors. So in the program, he identified the leverage points of empowering local health personnel to be able to understand the real needs of people, identify the problem, and conduct this designing process for better solutions and coordinated change across health units. He has prototyped by inviting local nurses into training, allowing them to empathize and initiate solutions for their hospitals, and work across like primary and secondary care to build stronger working processes and mechanisms to better serve the local people. And currently, this is in the process to integrate into nurse competency. And the model is now expanding to other provinces and go beyond like health service alone. Again, here's some impact we made through this program. And a little bit of photos. And it's really short introductions about the organization. I believe we had a lot to talk about during the Q&A session. And I think we pretty much represent ourselves as intermediary who in the spectrum of more like people-led side of intermediary. So I think we had a lot to share then. But with our goal, we know that we can't achieve this alone, and we would love to get in touch. So if you guys interested to hear more and exchange your idea, please feel free to get in touch via our communication channel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fa. Thank you. I think it's you touch on like your journey from incubating social entrepreneurs into how to connect to the bigger system to create system change in terms of policy level. And I think now actually I'm studying in Singapore on public policy. So it's really interesting to see what Rise Impact has demonstrated how the changing role of government and also the need to engage with intermediary to breach different sectors instead of working silos. So I think it's really interesting, and I have already had a lot of questions to ask you. So before the Q&A, may I now invite Jessica from the Hong Kong Council of Social Service to be on stage to share with us. She is in the hall today in person to share with us some of her experience as an intermediary to facilitate social innovation in Hong Kong and some of her views. May I have Jessica to be on stage now? Thank you.
Can you see me, Michael?
No.
No. Oh,
not yet.
Not
I can see you now.
Okay, this is really a very interesting but a little bit weird experience that I sitting alone here on stage and having my facilitator and other speaker on virtual, but I think this is new normal. And I think all of you have to, this has become our new normal. So thank you very much for coming. I'm Jessica from the Hong Kong Council of Social Service. Michael, I see you finally here right now. Yes. Sorry, I forgot. Despite this kind of quite interesting arrangement, I would like to share with you the development of SE ecosystem in Hong Kong and the role of intermediaries. Actually, our SCBC is just one of the intermediaries. Hong Kong, I think we have about 20 intermediaries. We have some fellows sitting here. So perhaps in coming a few minutes, I will introduce more about, give you a bird view about the development of the SE ecosystem rather than focusing on our SCBC. Okay.
You have to get rid of me.
I'm still not used to this new arrangement. Okay, anyway, in Hong Kong, I think perhaps you know that Hong Kong, we have this social enterprise concept since around 1980s. We can basically divide the stages of SE development in Hong Kong into two stages. The first stage is more the involvement from the social welfare sector, and the main focus at that time was about welfare, about how to use social enterprise as a means to alleviate poverty and unemployment, especially after the SARS epidemic and also the Asian financial crisis at that time. So at the first phase of our SE development in Hong Kong, we didn't have the so-called intermediaries at that time facilitate the whole ecosystem. But since the mid-2000 until the mid-2010, we see the first emergence of the intermediaries in Hong Kong. And at that time, we have some friends from the corporations and business sectors starting to show their interest in this ecosystem. We have the first social enterprise, social investment project dialogue in the Hong Kong, in Hong Kong, and then more come up such as the Green Monday and Diamond Cap using this kind of social investment models. And the intermediaries, they play very important role in incubating this new model. We have some friends sitting here, such as the Social Ventures Hong Kong, Good Lab, and our SCBC is just one of them. At that time, we try to enlarge the scope from social enterprise to social entrepreneurship, and this is since till the mid-2010. And the ecosystem keep on changing in recent 5 to 6 years since the mid-2014 onwards. Maybe due to some changes in our political and the societal environments, more and more individual citizens and civil society organizations are more interested in this aspect. So our discourses have been shifting from not just about social enterprise, but to social entrepreneurship and social innovation. So there are even more intermediaries that are coming up, and they are driven and they are incubated by the civil society organizations. So also thanks to the government SIE fund, the Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship Fund. The SIE fund, the government, they use a very new arrangement. They collaborate with the intermediaries to recruit and then incubate social innovators. So you can see that the development of SE ecosystem is also very related to the development of our intermediaries and ourselves. So this is a bit vague, blurry, but I try to illustrate the changes and the differences before mid-2010 and after the mid-2010 for the landscape of the ecosystem of intermediaries. I think the intermediaries, we are playing a very unique role because we work across sectors. We work across the social welfare sector, the business sector, and the government and the civil society sectors, and we work around them. At the same time, we are also working on a meso level, not the macro level, not just on the micro level, but also on the meso level. But before the mid-2010, we can see that most of our social enterprise intermediaries, we mainly provide support to the social enterprise circle. Here you can see that there are 3 circles. Some of us, we mainly provide support to the social enterprises, the entities themselves, business support, marketing support, and other promotion activities. For social enterprise, I mean the entities or the business organization that achieve the bottom line. Just like our SCBC, the Fullness Hong Kong, and the Hong Kong General Chamber of Social Enterprises. Because at the early stage of SE development in Hong Kong, we are still at the early stage mainly occupied, played by the WISEs, the World Integration Social Enterprises. But still, you see that at the early stage, we also have a SEF and the Social Ventures Hong Kong and Good Lab trying to enlarge the scope of social entrepreneurship to the business sector and the civil society. But there's something very interesting that happened after the mid-2010, that you can see a boom of the many intermediaries coming up, especially on the civil society aspect, such as the Green Impact, and Good Seed, you worded there before, and also B Lab, etc. The new intermediaries, they also not just focus on the social enterprise itself, but the for-purpose circle as a whole. Early this morning, we have the keynote speaker. Charles said, maybe in the future, we no longer have the boundary of the social welfare sector, business sector, and the civil society sector. We only just have one sector, is the humankind sector or the for-purpose sector. So we have some intermediaries trying to work on this area. For example, Social Ventures Hong Kong, they have shifted their focus from providing incubation to promoting the share value concept to the corporations, and B Lab also promote the B Corp movement to the corporations. So this is very different from the landscape that we observed before the mid-2010. Sorry, this is a bit conceptual, but I think this is very important if you are interested in the development of intermediaries in Hong Kong. I was trying to categorize that is not exhaustive because we have many intermediaries in Hong Kong. There are some major ones. I'm trying to classify them according to the focus on the impact. There are some intermediaries more interested to provide the support to individual social entrepreneurs or the organizations themselves. For example, the B Hub, which is one of the intermediaries under the SIE fund, they provide support to a very unique target, the ex-prisoners. Because some ex-prisoners, they set up social startups and they just focus on that. But there are also other intermediaries, they are more interested on the driving the systemic change, driving the institutional change. Maybe for example, the SVHK, even though they incubate the Green Monday at the early stage, but now this is no longer social enterprise itself. It has become a movement to change the food industry, to drive the systemic change. So I'm not saying that which one is more better than another one, but just some intermediaries, they are more focused on the provide in-depth support, and rather they just want to drive the systemic change. But you can see that in Hong Kong, we have quite a dynamic and a hybrid and vibrant landscape of the social enterprise intermediaries here. And for our SEBC, sorry, I need to do a bit the advertisement for my own SEBC. I think we regard ourselves as a super connector, ecosystem builders and incubators, where SEBC is under the Hong Kong Council of Social Service. Our HKCSS is going to celebrate our 75th anniversary next year. So we are quite old organizations, but we have a very extensive network with the government, the corporations, NGOs, and academia, etc. So what we try to do is to leverage our resources and network to provide support to the whole ecosystem rather than individual social enterprises. So for example, financial resources, we have been appointed by the government as one of the intermediaries to manage the SIE fund. We have tried out the first social impact bond or the Pay for Success project with some family foundations, the Oxfam Hong Kong and universities. In fact, we are doing quite well. I can say that we have already got the first phase result. We're doing quite well. And what we're doing is not just to support the Oxfam project, but we want to try out something new for the social finance model. And of course, we also have added support such as the marketing and trading platform to help the social enterprises reaching out to the corporations for their product and service. I know that I am running out of time, so I just introduce one case to illustrate what we are doing. As I said, we are more interested to provide some collective solutions to the whole sector, rather than just a few social enterprises to incubate them. So, for example, one gap that we observed since 10 years ago is the business gap and the marketing need of the social enterprises, especially in Hong Kong. Based on our survey, majority, I think over 60 or 70 of them, they are very small, less than 10 employees. So this is very difficult for the social enterprise to reach out to the market. But we have the caring company scheme. We have some extensive network with the corporations. So we decided this called the SE certificate gift. And then we engage over 200 social enterprises and the fair trade organizations in our network. Then we help them to promote one-stop to promote their products and service to the corporations, including some special schemes such as I named DBS and Asian Miles here. But of course, we have over 100. I think we'll have 100 corporate clients for this project. For example, DBS and Asian Miles, they can use the miles and they can use the credit to redeem this coupon, and then the customer, they can use the coupon and then buy the products in the social enterprises. It is proven to be an effective project because based on our survey, we know that we have brought extra 30% of their income, sales revenue to the social enterprises on average. Of course, there are some social enterprises, they have achieved over 300%, and some maybe 3%, but on average over 30%. So it demonstrates that what we are doing is trying to do this kind of collective solution rather than some not perhaps tailor-made project. This is our own positioning. Actually, I have more cases to share, but I know that I'm running out of time, and I will leave it to the chit-chat session. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. I think
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. I think you're in your research mode just now.
Yes.
Yeah. But
some of my findings.
Yeah, it's nice to hear some of your findings. And I think in Hong Kong, the situation, what you have just shared, actually, it's very similar to what Fa just shared. Also, the role of intermediary as the bridge, as the cultural translator to connect the people on the ground. I would say we are from the people sector. There are no boundaries between, oh, you're from NGO, I'm from church enterprise, or whatsoever sector, but we are all from people sector. And how do we connect to a bigger picture, to the government, to drive system change? Because from what we are trying to do is we have experimentation on the ground, and then we'll have policy change so that we can achieve a systemic change. So I think intermediary play both in Thailand and Hong Kong and Korea play a very important role in bridging the language to make sure different sectors, when they collaborate, they speak the same language and they have the same vision. And how do we have dialogues through communication to make sure we're on the same page and we are exerting our own influence to the field, to grow the field, to make the impact as a collective effort. So I have some questions. Meanwhile, I'll ask the audience in the hall to think of some questions and we can discuss. But before we open the floor, I can start a question first, and then maybe Fa and Jessica, you can ask each other. I didn't tell you guys, but maybe you can ask each other questions based on what you just hear. But my question is, so what we see in the past years because of COVID, like most of our ecosystem become even more closed. Like before, although we are now having virtual setting like this to learn from each other, but most of our cities are actually closed under lockdown and everything. And it does, from my perspective, it does limit some of the exchange and the learnings across sectors and even within the field. So what do you think about this? Do you think there are opportunities or a challenge that limits the impact of your work? Or actually, no, you see there are a lot of opportunities for you to bridge different sectors in this difficult time. So any thoughts around that because of COVID? Like, does that accelerate something that you have been doing, or actually no, there are some limitation and you guys are thinking how to overcome that? Jessica, Fa, any thoughts around that?
Okay,
You can go first.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm a believer of how can I say limitation. I believe that limitations leads to innovation. So because of COVID, I think it is. I think this is a good time for us to have a bit of reflections, and I believe that a lot of Hong Kong citizens have been doing a lot of reflections over the past 2-3 years. So of course, physically, we are constrained by some physical constraint, and we can't do this kind of inviting our guest speaker coming to Hong Kong. But now we're talking about the metaverse. And this is another new society, but as we have shared this morning, and I also in many sections, I think COVID is just painful but positive experience for us to reflect about our positions, not just about the intermediaries, but as a human. As a human, how can we reflect on what we are doing to this planet and to other people and to other societies. So I think I'm quite positive on this area. So although there's of course some constraint to our work, daily work, and it is because also some of our talents, of course, it is leaving our circle to other countries, and this is a big, this is a big challenge to our sector, especially now we want to rebuild our whole society as an inclusive society. But what about we take this as a moment for us to reflect about why we are living in this world, in this planet, and doing something good. And I think social entrepreneurship and social enterprise is a solution. I still believe that this morning we talked about how we have migrated to a shareholder capitalism, to a stakeholders capitalism. And I still believe that social entrepreneurship is one of the answers. That's a method for us to achieve this migration. Well, I'm sorry, I'm again too conceptual to answer your question, but
but it's great. I think what matters is how we think and how we embrace the challenge. And I think in today's world, there are a lot of things that we can't predict. But at the same time, this is the beautiful thing for innovation to happen, because we do constantly to experiment. And as an intermediary, in SIX, we are also an intermediary. We believe in the power of exchange, and that's how we can move forward. Even though politically or like around the world, we become even more close. But how we join hands as a region, as Intercities Alliance, like to really learn from each other and don't cut the ties, and how do we move forward to keep bridging different sectors to hope to achieve system change, not just in our city, but also in our region. Fa, do you have any thoughts around this? Thailand experience? Yeah.
Okay, yes. I think the question is really interesting. And actually, I never thought about that before, but my reflection would be, I think during the COVID, even as you mentioned, there's a lot of constraint in terms of like international exchange. I see two good sides about social innovation in Thailand. And one of the things is that it allows us to take a deeper look into our own problems. I mean, COVID showed us a lot of challenges in terms of like government management, the infrastructure we had, all of the political instability in the country. And it's a 2-year period that we really have to take a look at what's really happened in Thailand. And I think the second good side is that even we find that basically in Thailand there's a lot of problems, and basically it's a system problem. We still haven't lost hope, because all of the technology that allow us to we'll still connect, and we'll still see that there's other case studies that it inspires us that it can happen somewhere else, and it can happen here in Thailand as well. So I think for me, COVID gave us really good fuel for social innovation, particularly for the youth.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to see how Thailand and Hong Kong share a similar reflection in terms of how do we take a deeper look into our structural issues, and in this time as intermediary, how do we position ourselves to really bridging the divide, and I think that is our role. Before we open up to the floor, I have one more question. How do you see the future of social innovation in your country? I mean, in Hong Kong and in Thailand, and how do you think intermediary could push that narrative or to push that vision? Because we are in a summit, right? We are not just counting what we have done, but rather than we have a forward-looking views. So what do you think are the future of social innovation in your country? We definitely see hope because of these difficulties, but yeah, what is your vision, and how do you think your organization or intermediary as a role can push that narrative? Jessica or Fa? Do you have any things you could share?
Let me first. I think the title of this today is Intermediaries is the ecosystem builder. So I think, as I said, I'm still positive about the future of social innovation, especially because we have the higher awareness and higher eagerness to engage in this various kind of social issues. I think because I have been working in the social sector for over 15 years, almost 20 years. When I first joined, I've already disclosed my age. Yeah.
No, you're just 18.
18, yes, 18. Since 5 years old, I'm engaged in social welfare. But at the same time, at that time, when I first joined the HACSS, the boundary between the business, social welfare, and government is very clear cut. And people also think that, oh, this is the job of the government, or this is the job of the NGO to solve the social problems. But right now, when you talk to everyone, the youngster or retirees, they will tell you that everyone, I want to participate. I want to do something bottom up. So I don't need a lot of resources, but you give me the room, to give me the opportunity that I will do something good. And I believe that the government realize that. Otherwise, we won't have the SIE fund. I need to be promotional also. The SIE fund, they welcome individuals, not just NGOs or organizations to apply, and they can get individual grants to start something, the prototype fund. So I believe the government, they realize it, just our intermediaries, how to bridge these institutions with the individuals better. Actually, I have one question I want to ask Fa, because especially another presenter talked about the trust issue. So I think for intermediaries, people often regard intermediaries as something entity that's helping to bridge the network, bridge the resources. But I believe that we also have obligation and responsibility to build trust and build value. And in the presentation of Fa, you also mentioned that trust building in the healthcare, the nurse leadership system. And in another presentation by a Korean speaker, he also mentioned about how can we, as an intermediary, we build the social capital on the trust, this aspect. So I believe that this is one challenge that that we have to tackle as an intermediary. Yeah, but this is positive future.
Yeah. Trust definitely is really important in the relationship building process, especially in sex. We have been doing it like for more than a decade, and without trust in the relationship building process, we can't survive that long. And I think as an intermediary, like how do we help build trust, to have the learning communities, to make sure everyone like believe in the same vision and future, and then we try to act out. I think that's important. Is that the case in Thailand, Fa?
All right. So let me first answer your question about the future that I've seen for social innovation in Thailand. First, I need to admit that there is some progress, but it's slower than I expect. I mean, as Jessica mentioned, in the past, there's a kind of expectation towards government, towards NGO, towards corporates to be the one who come up and make some change. And from the era that we're focused on supporting social entrepreneurs. We try to advocate change in government, in NGO, and in corporate for like, I would say like 10 years ago. But there's not much, I would say, concrete progress from my point of view. There's some progress. For example, in terms of the government, 10 years ago when I worked in the government agency, we try to advocate for a Social Enterprise Act, which we expect the government to come up with a supportive policy for the social enterprise. The income, the company tax waive, the support for social procurement, the support for having representative of social entrepreneurs in co-designing the policy, that kind of stuff. And it's like 10 years past, that's happened. But I don't know if I'm too rushed, but I expect it to be more, faster. But with that progress, my reflection is that it's come to the point where currently for a couple of years, the public is a very strong, the strong pressing power to push both the government, the corporate, or even the NGO to do better. And I think, as Jessica mentioned, I truly believe that currently in Thailand, particularly the movement of the youth who want to raise their voice to the government. I mean, a couple of years now, there's lots of issue that's related to like government mismanagement and that kind of stuff. I won't go into detail that much, but there's a strong feeling about the government didn't perform as we expect them to be representative of us. So with that, I think currently what I expect from the future is that I see the trends now that even kids in school, they started to believe that they can make change in some way. And particularly with the new technology, as I mentioned earlier, it's a new powerful tools for them to really make change and really come up with new solutions that, the people from the older generation sometimes cannot really think of. So that's what I put really high hope on, like social innovation in Thailand.
I think it's interesting when both of us, both of you guys mentioned about people powered, and also, and as I think it's important. I can say that there are not at the level of trust between government and people in both of the cities might not be very high with respect to what happened in the past few years. But as an intermediary, I think we are the organizations to help create spaces for these dialogue to happen, to hopefully with the empowered citizens, then how they can, through the space that we have created, to try something. And then with as an intermediary, we are kind of older in a way, like or have more influencing power in the institutional level. How do we connect them? And that is something that intermediary maybe in the future, I would say, with the rising importance to be the translator, to be the cultural translator, to be the bridge, to be the lab or experimental space for that people power to reveal. So Yeah, I thank you for sharing that. I would love to open the floor. We don't have much time left. We have 5-6 minutes left, but I would love to open the floor and to see if there are any audience questions to our contributors.
If there are any questions from the floors.
Yeah.
And I know that there's some questions in the chat box.
Oh, is that?
Firstly, any questions from the floor?
Any question?
No, right now, perhaps we're in chat the questions in the chat box.
Okay.
In Zoom room.
Do we? Or any thoughts if you don't have questions or any thoughts from the floor also. I think it's a space for us to exchange. So any thoughts? Maybe you're one of the intermediary, you agree or you don't agree what we have said, or you have something to chip in what we have discussed also. I actually can't see the floor.
Yeah.
Me too.
Okay.
Just mention about trust. I've told you both that I'm doing a study, a personal study about the intermediaries landscape and the trust and some social capital issues in Hong Kong. I am still analyze my findings, but one thing that I want to share is although that sometimes we believe that Hong Kong social enterprises, we have different groups, different intermediaries, and different perspective about what a social enterprise, what is social innovation. But the identity and the trust level in Hong Kong is very high among our social enterprise level. I've did some analysis higher than I expected. I can say that the trust level, if 5 is the highest one, and our trust level is over 4, and which is rather high. And also the identity, because sometimes people come to me and say, oh, I'm no longer identify myself as social entrepreneurs, because it is really very difficult to be a social innovators, social entrepreneurs in Hong Kong. But and this is based on my survey that I have distributed and collect over 120 questionnaires, and based on the findings, I found that actually over 80% of my respondents regard themselves as part of the social enterprise circle. So so I have the grounds that when you ask me whether I look positive, if it's in positive for the future of social entrepreneurship, the circle in future, I have the grant. But I think perhaps some of you sitting here not quite realize that, oh, we are so allied. We have the so values, we are so allied, and we have the same identity. But just as the intermediaries, I do think that apart from some work that we are delegated by the government, sometimes the government delegates something for us to do, or by the funders, may perhaps in the field level, this kind of meso level, we have to do something more rather than just focus on our work, but how can we collaborate more between the SE challenge, between SEBC, SACE, between SEF, SE Summit, and something that we can co-create. Actually, for the Chinese name or for the English name, intermediaries, I think this is not a very good name that's to illustrate the meaning of intermediaries. If you look into the Chinese name of the intermediaries, it's called 協創機構. 協創is somehow implied that co-creation. So co-creation is the meaning and the core of the intermediaries and the relationship between intermediaries. Right now, we are creating many, many things. And now we have to co-create more things so that we are those that came ourselves to be the intermediaries.
Yeah,
I mean, just some reflection. Yeah,
I want to add on this point. So back in when I was in Europe, I actually work on a project called Social Innovation Community. Basically, the project is to act as the intermediary of intermediaries, to connect intermediaries, to share practice, to share what they have been doing in different parts of Europe. And I feel like maybe in the future for us to go forward, like what Jessica mentioned, we intermediaries need to sit together much more frequently, to share practice, to see what we can do together, so that we can move the field forward. No matter it's within Hong Kong or even regionally. So we have more chance to work across cities. I think that could either we learn from each other, and also we might want to push a new narrative in Asia on what kind of social innovation we are pushing also. So I think that is important to have networks of intermediaries to learn from each other, like today. So yeah, so any final words that you want to share with the audience today, Far and Jessica, in terms of your wish of social innovation's future and as an intermediary? What are your final thoughts and wish that you want to share before we close the session? Do you have anything to add? Yeah, Far, can you go?
Okay, I probably want to add on the importance of network. One reflection from being intermediary in Thailand for me is conceptually, many people say it like intermediaries really like play a critical role in the ecosystem, but it's practically, I think it's hard for us as well to prove ourselves about the value, what we contribute, because mainly it's pretty much like indirect value towards the stakeholders in the ecosystem. And it's pretty challenging for us as well to sustain ourselves as our social impact we want to maintain, and also like financially. I would say in Thailand, we still haven't reached the point where we had like a strong support for intermediaries as well. So it's nice to hear from Jessica that for me, it's given me hope that it can happen. And I think having a group of network of intermediary and exchange, even like in Bangkok or like across the region, I would definitely advocate that it's really important. And especially for us at Rise Impact, we see ourselves pretty much like a practitioner and people side of intermediary, and we haven't had a strong connection with the government or the funder, but we still have high hope that there will be more intermediary happens in Thailand to help create like better bridge. And among ourselves, I would say it's really important, and we really love to get in touch with like everyone, even like in the floor. I'm not really sure who joining because I cannot see, but at Rise Impact, we're still in the starting like baby step of trying to bridge people and the government and make better solution for the society. But we really open for like knowledge sharing and collaborations. It's really important. I'm really advocate for that.
Thanks, Far. Jessica?
Yeah, I agree with Far. Frankly, intermediaries are very resources driven, even in Hong Kong. And financial sustainability is not just a problem for our incubated social enterprises, but also for ourselves. So we keep on trying to diversify our funding. But I think that perhaps we can think some way that to sustain our work. How about using crowdfunding? So traditionally, we relied on a government funding and relied on the large family foundation something. But if our work is worthy to do, perhaps we can think about some innovative and new models. And this is what I think our intermediate have to do, is to move one step further before, and then to be pioneered, and then to be the first people to fail. and then to learn experience and then tell the story to the others. So this is a bit crazy, but I think this is what intermediaries have to do. And just don't, I think we can find a way to survive. Maybe I have to give up something, not perhaps some of my team members, but still we can find our ways or survive. This is so I sound a bit crazy, but I think in this time that's full of uncertainties, that there's no one all-in-one solution that we can use. So maybe we can try something new.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Fa. I think, to conclude, as an intermediary, I think we can't deny the importance and the rising importance of intermediaries to bridge the gap, especially in both of the cities that we have mentioned and also in our region. How do we facilitate more intercities learning to make sure we are moving forward? And I'm sure intermediaries is one of the major building blocks for our future to really connect. So thank you everyone in Hong Kong for joining us today, and also thank you for joining us from Chiang Mai, and also thank you, Jessica, for sharing your experience. So if you have any comments, feedback, you can just scan the QR code on the screen right now, and then you can give feedback to the Social Enterprise Summit and ourselves. And if you want to connect, please do so. You can connect with FAR through email, or just type Rise Impact Thailand on Google, and of course Hong Kong Council of Social Service. Everyone knows Jessica in the field. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Marco, for doing this kind of very difficult facilitation work virtually. Thank you, and using the Hong Kong background as in your Zoom. While you are staying in Singapore.
I wish to see you guys next year back in town.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fa.
Okay, so we're good to go?
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Marco. It's really interesting session. All right, talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.